All right, this is Automotive Repair News today. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Braxton, and we got a lot to cover today. And this is a great opportunity for you to get a pulse, a glimpse, an update about what's happening in the industry. Because, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome a bigwig to the show. His name is Mike Spagnola, and he is the president and CEO of SEMA. What's up, Mike? Thanks for hanging out.
Hey, pleasure to be here, Braxton.
Yeah. So when you and I were just kind of discussing a little bit, here's our list, but it's 4 or 5 things, but they're all critical to the automotive industry, the automotive repair industry, and they're all happening right now. And so there's a lot for you to balance in your role. So I do not envy the position you have, the schedule you keep, but I am very, very glad that you are with me. So I want to first talk about the EV mandate that I think in the last 2 weeks
Yes.
was just kicked down the road. So you told me it was 2026 in California. Now I may be remembering wrong, but was it 2035 for the rest of the country? You update me on what it was and now what it is, and what's the update and what's happened there.
Yeah. So for the last probably 3 years now, we have been advocates of eliminating the EV mandates, not because we're against EVs. We just think consumers should have a choice of what they drive. I mean,
Yeah.
EVs have got some great technology and, we know it's part of the future. We just believe that there are consumers should have a choice of what they drive based on their needs. So if you need to have a 2,500 diesel truck, then you should be able to drive that. If you want an EV for getting around town, great. If you want a hybrid, great. There's so many technologies out there. And by the government picking one technology over another, you stifle innovation. I mean, America's been built on innovation, right? And so we were big advocates of saying, currently in California, or up till a couple of weeks ago in California, 35% of new car sales had to be EV and 100% by 2035. And there were 16 at one point, 16 other states that followed that.
That's why I was remembering 2035.
Yep.
It was 100% by that year. That's right. See, I'm not totally crazy.
Yeah. So we led that fight. We organized 56,000 letters to the Hill. We had almost 2 million voters for digital ads, and really talked about even the small business that would be affected and decimated by internal combustion bans. And we built a coalition of over 335 businesses who spoke up against EV mandates. So, we went to court on it. We were able to work with Zeldin, the head of EPA, and the president really on this, what's called a Congressional Act resolution. And what that really meant was Biden in his last few months of office signed basically an edict that said California could make their own rules up and could continue on with what they were doing. And we were able to bring a Congressional Review Act where it literally went to Congress and the Senate and reviewed this rule, and we were able to get it overturned. And so big victory on that end to, again, not against EVs, but that California shouldn't get to make its own standards and have basically another 16 states follow after that. And again, that innovation should continue. So I was excited to be in the White House last week when the president signed that bill. And so it's probably one of the largest things SEMA has done in the government relations side to overturn a massive rule that would have greatly affected the automotive industry.
Well, so here's my thing. I kind of, and you're more plugged into this kind of stuff than I am. So you tell me if I'm just totally off base here, but with things like this, and even the tariffs that are currently, being figured out in the US, this stuff, while a good idea, while one day will happen, it just seems to me like it all happens too fast. Like the expectation is too short a window to make this feasible. And I don't know if that's, knowing that there's going to be red tape, They try to make it happen as soon as possible because they know it's going to get kicked down the road, so that it's not, if you make it happen in 10 years, it's going to be 20. That way, if you're going to start in, if you make it start in 5, really it's 10. I don't know if it like helps accelerate the process to like force something that's not possible to try and happen. I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, for sure. There's some of that definitely happens. I was in Sacramento probably about a year ago, and after hours and just having a beer with a couple legislators, both sides of the hill, Democrat and Republican, and talking about this particular thing because we were really pushing on it. And, one legislator said to me, Mike, look around this building. None of us will be here in 2035. And so, yeah, we are pushing hard on this. But you're right. I think there were some internally that said, we can demand 35% by 2026, knowing that we might hopefully get to 20%. Well, we got to 10, right? And then even looking at the infrastructure needed. California already has brownouts and blackouts, and we've gone through all of that sort of stuff where the infrastructure wasn't there. The technology is still moving. There's some great technology coming out on EVs again, and it is part of our future. I don't think it ever takes over 100%. I may be wrong, but it'll be a long time from now.
Yeah.
There is alternative fuels out there now. There's still some work on hydrogen that's happening on large trucks, on semis and that sort of thing, which seems to make a lot of sense. Hybrids make a lot of sense. There's low pollution fuels now out there. There's synthetic fuels. There's all those things going on, and there may be fuels we don't even know about yet. So why stifle that sort of innovation? And why not let, America is built on innovation and on finding solutions to things, and we should let that continue. And you're seeing it in, voters vote with their pocketbooks, and people were still buying hybrids. They're still buying ICE vehicles. They're, still making those choices. So, and again, even that technology wasn't there. And so it had to come to a head. Yeah. And we're just glad it worked our way. Again, it's probably one of the largest things SEMA's ever been able to do to affect the industry and to affect, through government and overturn this CRA resolution. So excited about it, excited to kind of bask in that glory of a win, because they don't happen too often in big government. But, to have the president on board was pretty cool.
Yeah, I know you have to be proud. I can tell.
And our team worked really hard on this. This was a joint effort from our government affairs team and our marketing team and really everybody and the industry. I think we had the industry behind us on this one.
Yeah. So where is the goal? What year is it? What are the percentages now? How has that been rewritten?
Yeah, so it is free market now. And you're even seeing the OEs come back and saying we're going to delay, the expansion of battery powered vehicles. And so it just continues now. It's just a normal basis. There's no law. There's no rule. We're going to continue on in the automotive industry, building every kind of vehicle that consumers want. It's back to now. The emission standards continue to get tighter, all those sorts of things. But from a federal standpoint, but California doesn't get to set the rules for the rest of the country. And again, it's just if you want to go buy an EV, go buy an EV. If you want to buy a diesel truck, go buy a diesel truck. Whatever your needs are, should be how it moves. And
how does California feel about that?
Well, they're not happy. Governor Newsom is suing the federal government for a cover up that he and elected officials developed a policy that wasn't for the American people, and he got called out on it. So I don't think he's got he's got no legal standing from what we can tell. We're moving forward. It's the law is the law now, and it can't be reversed. So, he can continue to raise gas prices to a point where, people feel the pain and go to EVs, I guess. He can, continue to push his ways, but there is no EV mandate. And
what is the price of gas right now in Southern California?
Oh, it's painful. I guess it goes up another 60 cents a gallon in July 1 for taxes. And I think we're going to be over $1.10 or $1.20. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's around those numbers for just the tax on every gallon of gas. And we're in the fives, early fives right now, $5, five
See,
and a
now
quarter.
the national average would be so much lower if not for if like for California.
Yeah,
Like
I
right
was in.
now, so Asheville is a little higher than a lot of the areas around, but I think I got gas yesterday for 270. And gas about an hour outside of town was, I think, 252. So
Yeah, I was in
that's
Florida
crazy.
about a month ago, and I was sending back photos to friends of gas at 295 and 315 sort of numbers, and it's just amazing how much different it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Another matter of business I want to hear from you on is Leno's law. So I've covered this a little bit on the podcast, and uh, I want you to give all the details. But this just got passed too. So I mean, like I said, all this stuff is sort of happening all at once here. It's got a lot of positive momentum, and this is good for Jay Leno, but also for a lot of the other classic car collectors there in California too. So tell us about what happened and what that means in California.
Yeah, it's actually not passed all the way yet. So
Oh, that's right. It got moved to the Senate. Yes,
yes, it got moved to the Senate.
that's right.
So we presented the potential law in the state assembly, and actually went to committee first and made it through committee, and then it went through the Senate, and the Senate made some changes. But basically, what it is in just about all states, if there is a inspection, it tends to be at 25 rolling years. In California, it's from 1976 on. So if you've got a 1976 vehicle, every 2 years it's got to go in and get a smog check, and so that's pretty burdensome. I mean, there's less than 1.25% of the cars on the road are 1976, forward. So it's a heavy impact on people that collect cars. And part of the problem is on these older vehicles, let's say you have a 1976, 77, 78 car, there's no OBD plug-in. So, the smog station has to really literally put it on a dyno, put a sniffer up the tailpipe, and understand whether it's got, an emissions problem. The problem with that is most of the emission stations around California don't have that equipment anymore. They've moved strictly to plug in into the OBD port. So it's made it very hard to even get your car smogged. And if you can find a station that does that, they tend to charge a few $100 just to get a smog check.
Yeah.
And at times you're driving 40, 50, 60 miles to that smog station to get a smog check, which is more than you're putting on your collector car, on any given weekend, right?
Right.
So these cars tend to be driven a lot of less miles. So it's a common sense rule. And so we are trying to make it, we've been generous at a rolling 35 years versus 25. And so we have presented that potential new law.
And
Again,
does it
it's made.
roll? So every year it increases. It's always 35 years in the past.
Always 35 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going forward, a 1990 vehicle wouldn't need to be smogged, a 1991, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So it would, I think it's a smart, intelligent rule. I think it's less paperwork. It's less cumbersome. It's easier on car collectors that, again, aren't driving these cars every day. So as it made its way through the assembly, through the Senate, they did add rules that it has to have a collector car plate and you have to have collector car insurance, which we're not crazy about, but at least we can make it through those sorts of programs. So now it goes on to the state assembly, and they have to make a ruling by July 18th. So we're excited to see that come through. And then if it gets through the assembly, it goes to Governor Newsom's desk to be signed. Now, they have also added that they don't want to start this till 2027 because it's going to take the California Department of Motor Vehicles some time to get this set up.
Yep.
But hopefully this law goes into place January 1, 2027. So hopefully for collector car people and for those who enjoy our hobby and our lifestyle, this will be another win.
What's your confidence level 0 to 100?
I think with the things that have been added, the collector car insurance and the historical plate licenses, I feel pretty good about it. We never know what happens when it gets to the governor's desk, but
Yeah.
it's a common sense bill, and it again, it actually saves some burden on the DMV and going forward. And I know that there's enough noise from car collectors around California that I think it gets through.
Yeah, I was about to say this would be a very detrimental veto if it got to his desk and he said no. That, yeah, not looking good for if
Yeah,
he wants to consider running for president or something
for
like
president.
that.
Yeah, so we've tried this bill before. As it stands today, it's the most progress it's made in over 20 years. So hopefully it gets through, and we're on our way.
So another bill that definitely has more impact and it's far more critical for the repair industry, of course, but also just for consumers in general and car owners, is the Right to Repair Act. And so I've talked about this more than any other topic in the automotive industry. And I've had Lisa Fauché from the Auto Care Association on
Okay.
several times, and
Yep.
we're starting to say we just need to be on every month to do
Sure.
another update. But her and I have talked at length about where she feels about this. And last I spoke to her, she felt it was a 2026 thing.
Yep.
But I mean, as some of these things have happened faster than maybe we would have anticipated, maybe it's possible that it happens later this year. So where are you at on the Right to Repair Act?
Lisa's a great advocate and great partner in this fight.
Yes.
As is all the automotive repair industry. So again, we're committed to preserving the rights of vehicle owners and millions of automotive enthusiasts to choose where and what parts and what software they want to put on their vehicle to be not just repaired but customized or modified. So we even take it a bit further to say right to modify, and we believe that that's the consumer who buys the vehicle should be able to work on it when they want to, how they want to, what repair shop they want to take it to. And, it's imperative that all legislative and regulatory and industry standards or agreements adhere to these sort of principles. And and then that information and data that comes out of those vehicles, right, should be allowed to be seen by an independent repair shop, by the consumer. Um, we protect individuals and businesses to be able to modify and customize vehicles as they see fit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I kind of compare this to the conversation we had about the EV mandate, the conversation we had briefly, I brought up about the tariffs. I know manufacturers, dealerships know without a fact that they have to use auto repair shops. They can't fix all the cars, and they know that. I know it comes back to money, and this obviously, if it didn't get passed, they get to keep more money. And but they know they can't. They physically cannot. Auto repair shops struggle to keep all the cars on the road fixed. So can you imagine if in 10 years all the vehicles on the road had to go to dealerships? Wouldn't happen. Could not be possible.
You can't. I mean, I can tell you, my dealership is it's a 2-week notice to get in to get serviced. Right.
I mean, some repair shops are that way.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. Like I had my car was in an accident a couple months ago, and I've been dealing with the insurance problem. You know that. But I'm to the point where I want to take my car to a repair shop before the body shop gets it, just to, hey, is this car worth saving? Right. Or should I just get something else? And I booked the appointment last week, and it was supposed to be today, but I pushed it back. It's Friday. So it was about a week. And so, I mean, that's a repair shop, and that's a well-run repair shop. So yeah, I mean, this is going to get passed. It has to get passed, and everybody on both sides, good, bad, ugly, evil, knows that.
Right.
So when do you think it's going to happen?
Yeah, I think it's a next year. I think it's a next year issue
Okay,
for
so
sure.
you and Lisa
We're
agree
hearing
on
the same thing. Yeah,
that. Okay.
but the ability to have access to be able to calibrate and recalibrate any elimination of barriers, having a level playing field, and then of course owners' data rights. That they have the rights to that data and what's going on. So, they're just it's just all those basics. And
How
it
has it
even
been received? See, last time I talked to Lisa, one second.
ooh, we just lost video.
Yeah, I got you. How is it being received? So last time I talked to Lisa, it had just been reintroduced. So, and of course, a lot of the folks who were being reintroduced to were new in their positions. So how has it been received so far?
Yeah, I think again, elections have consequences, and I think that we are in a friendly environment right now to these sorts of things. But that's why it's got to get through in 26, right? I don't think we
Yeah.
can wait till the mid-year term voting just to be safe. But yeah, I think we're in good shape. There's money in politics on both sides of this, of course, and so you never know. But we've got to continue to push hard. We're going to have to organize repair shops and car owners and all that to write and call legislators with their opinion on this. So, this isn't a pushover. I mean, this thing has come up before and we've been able to get past before. I do think that with technology and with the argument of safety and, ADOS and those sorts of things, I think the fight does get harder for sure. I do think that that this is not going to be, this isn't one of those things where it's, hey, this is common sense. It's going to happen. We can't.
When do you anticipate that go time is? When folks need to be writing their representatives?
Yeah, I think it probably starts real soon, and we're not going to have to let the heat off. But there'll be a crescendo to this for sure. Once this bill gets introduced and gets kind of weaves its way through, we're going to have to be pretty vocal about it. No different than the EV mandates or some of these other rules that we have been working through. SEMA is working really hard to work with not just other trade associations, but to really get out in the industry and have a louder voice. And as does MEMA and some of the other groups, to say, you got to be, politically involved. Look, I'm a parts guy from the very beginning. I started my life at a dealership working in the parts department, actually as a delivery parts driver, and so I'm and I've come from the industry. I'm not a trade show guy or a association guy from the beginning. I've been a SEMA member for 40 years, and so I wasn't in this political fight up to a few years ago when I became CEO. But I've really realized how important it is for us to be politically active on things like this, because too many times we've been quiet or, come up to say what we think towards the end, and it's too late. And so as I became CEO, we put a lot more time and effort and money into our government affairs team. We went from 4 people now to 11 plus lots of outside assistance and really kind of rallying the automotive industry. And you can see the success we've had because of that. So, and we're going to continue to fund it even more and to be much more active. It used to be that we tried to work behind the scenes on these sorts of things. And quite honestly, it didn't work as well as it's working now, when we can be much more active politically to make sure that we can continue to protect our industry and our environment. And, not only just the repair side, but for us, the right to modify, the right to customize, all those sorts of things. And it's going to continue to play even a bigger role, not just in repair, but you just mentioned your car being in the body shop, with all the ADOS features coming on now, with all those technologies coming on. We've got to have a seat at the table as those rules become mandatory. So for example, right now, self-braking is being put on a lot of vehicles, but there's no NHTSA standard. There's no rule that says you have to have automatic braking in your car. Manufacturers are doing that for safety reasons and for selling purposes and to get that 5-star rating and those sorts of things. But come 2029, it becomes mandatory.
Right. I was going to bring that up. Yep.
Yeah. So we've got to have a seat at the table of
Isn't
what
it up
that
to
means.
60 miles an hour?
Yeah. So, what does that mean? How does it mean? What happens when you modify a vehicle? What happens when you lift your truck? What happens when you put larger tires and wheels on it? All those sorts of
Right.
things.
Yeah.
One of the concerns is can you turn it off? So let's just say there's no ability to turn that off in starting 2029. So now I take my 2029 Corvette and I want to go out to the racetrack for the weekend, and I dive into the apex and it decides to self-brake, right? Or I go to pass another vehicle on the track and lane change departure warning kicks on and won't let me. Or I want to take
Yeah.
my Bronco or Jeep off-roading and it sees a rock and it won't let me go over it because self-braking comes into play. So, again, we've got to have a seat at the table and a voice in all of that to say, hey, hang on, guys, before we make these rules and regulations, let's make sure we understand what happens when you modify a vehicle. What happens when you put a leveling kit or you want to lift your truck 3 inches or put a larger set of tires and wheels on that vehicle. What do those cameras now see? What's it looking at? How can we modify the software to make sure that it's still in safety compliance? And then even just awareness in body shops today. We know that there are body shops across the country that a vehicle can come in and it's got all those sensors on the vehicle and it's been in an accident and they repair it. It doesn't necessarily go back to recalibration and making sure that all those safety systems have been recalibrated to see what it's supposed to see. So, making sure that that awareness happens and what happens from the consumer side as well as the body shop side to make sure, and even the insurance side, some insurance companies won't pay for that recalibration. So again, we all need to have a seat at the table to have a conversation about these things so that people can continue to not only work on their own vehicles, or repair shops can work on those vehicles and they don't have to go back to the dealer, that equipment's made available, that software is made available, that we all play a part in repair and modification of these vehicles.
I mean, it's all
Really,
connected.
yeah, it's all connected. And look, SEMA's a $53 billion industry annually, 1.2 million jobs in America, $337 billion a year in economic impact. And so we have a voice, as does MEMA and as does
Big voice.
the whole repair industry. And we got to make sure our voice is heard.
Yeah. So, part of that voice, you were telling me about the FIA. You're now part of the FIA. So, my listeners and folks who follow the show know this. You probably are catching on, but I come from outside the industry, worked for radio stations, and I've been doing this podcast for a little over a year. So, I can hold conversations. I know what's going on, but there are still a lot of things that I'm just not there yet. Learning. So
Sure.
when you said TIA, I don't even know what that is. So
FIA. So
you tell me.
Yeah,
You're a part of TIA now, and that's a recent thing, but I got no clue. So you tell me.
Yeah, so we also announced, besides announcing the EV mandate and being in the White House to sign that bill on
When
the
are you
same
finding
day.
time to sleep? Mike, just let me know about that.
It is I love this industry and I've been part of it since I got out of high school, and it's an honor and a privilege to be in the chair that I'm in. I've still got a ton of energy and a fight in me, and I've got a great team around me. So it's long hours and long days, and but I love it. I've got 3 kids and 2 boys and a girl, and my 2 boys are in the industry, so it's fun to see that, and just all that goes around us, right? And every part of celebrating car repair to racing. And in this case, the FIA, most people know it for being part of Formula One. Formula One racing
Okay.
is part of FIA, but they have another division that most people don't know about, and it's around the mobility issues. So they have a separate division that's just on mobility and tourism, which really has a voice worldwide in exactly what we were just talking about, in this ADAS technology, in safety, in all of that. So SEMA applied and was accepted by the FIA last week. Their international convention was in Macau, which is outside of China, and people from all over the world came. We got voted in, and we were excited about that. But we're going going to have a seat at the table now, not just in the US, but worldwide on technology and what happens. And again, specifically in this ADAS and these emerging technologies where, because it doesn't just affect the US, but, it affects, just take, Germany, Mercedes, BMW, any of the cars made worldwide will have this same technology and these same standards. And so just raising our voice, not just in the US now, but internationally on safety policy and mobility and those sorts of issues by joining in partners. So FIA has become a member of SEMA and SEMA has become a member of FIA.
Oh, okay.
They
Cool.
have these technologies worldwide. They have these voices worldwide. We're going to be part of that voice. It actually started when FIA personnel, Mohammed bin Salim, who some people will know, he's pretty famous in the Formula One world, came to the SEMA show and saw that we had a future tech and a mobility display that we have been growing and expanding on every year. And that display has everything from, EV vehicles to hydrogen to all these technologies that are moving and going forward and kind of advanced technologies and a lot of work in this ADAS area. We have an ADAS lab in Detroit, in our Detroit facility, where we're really studying what happens when you lift vehicles, what happens when you take we have bought a 2025 Chevy truck and we've tested it stock. Then we've tested it with a leveling kit. We tested it with a 3-inch lift. We tested it with 33-inch tires, 35-inch tires, a 6-inch lift, all those sorts of things to really understand what happens when you modify these vehicles.
Right. I read about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the people from FIA came and saw those displays and saw what we were doing at the SEMA show and saw this work that we're doing. And we're very intrigued with that and how that could work internationally. And so they actually approached us to say, we think we should partner together. They recognize the voice we have legislatively here in the US. We recognize the voice they have worldwide, especially in Europe. And so we think it's going to be a great partnership. And I'm excited to get going on that. But a big announcement for us to be part of such a big, prestigious group and to work together really worldwide now on these sort of technologies.
Well, I feel like all this stuff we've been talking about, the EV mandate, Leno's law, right to repair, FIA, I mean, it's all super positive and it's building momentum for SEMA coming up later this year. You just sort of mentioned it a second ago, but I mean, let's see.
5 months.
Yeah, shoot. 4.5 months away.
Yep.
4.5, Mike, not 5.
4.5. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's early November. I mean, it's coming up and registration's open, all this stuff. So I'm sure there's a lot of folks who have never been, plenty have, but what's different this year? You were mentioning the EV display and all the updates that happen there every year. But what excites you the most about SEMA 2025?
Yeah, so it's always exciting, and it's really industry week. MEMA's involved. It's both the replacement parts show and of course SEMA, which is the more in the performance side show. But on the SEMA side, it's huge. Of course, we take over the complete convention center, hotels now, all of that. We're about 1.3 million square feet of space of just booths in 3 million square feet of property. And it's miles and miles and miles of, I think it's 23 miles of just carpet we lay down.
Yeah. It sounds ridiculous. And then when you get there, it's even more ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
It's crazy.
It's a business to business show, Tuesday through Thursday. We now do open it up to the public on Friday. And because we do believe that those consumers are really influencers, right? And so, while we want to keep it business to business Tuesday through Thursday, we recognize that anybody that comes to that show is an enthusiast and really is the neighborhood guy that people go to when they say, what car should I buy? What should I do with it? What brand tire should I buy? Those sorts of things. So while they don't have 10 million viewers, they are really influencers, to the local neighborhoods. I mean, I see that all the time, as probably you do, is, if you're into cars, somebody will ask you your opinion on something. And so we think it is critical that consumers have a chance now to come to the show and see what's going on. And they're only there because they are enthusiasts and because they do want to see what's going on. So, it's coming up November 5th through 8th, Las Vegas. Registration is open now. Last year was our largest show ever, and we think it's going to match that again this year. It's
the only problem with SEMA, Mike? You were
that?
mentioning F1. The fact that is it happening again this year that F1 is like a week or two after that, and they're setting up everything, and half the roads are closed in Vegas.
It got better. So the first year was terrible. I got to admit, the first year was terrible, and last year got a lot better. This year it is 2 weeks again after, but that now that that infrastructure is in, and this is the third year putting on the F1 race. They're committed to 10 years. Some of the
structure's permanent.
Yeah, some of that construction. I know the pits and the garages and all that are permanent. That's several $1 million deal.
Yeah,
but last year ran a lot smoother. We really didn't see an impact from the show as much. Now there's these Tesla tunnels that you can take a Tesla electric car underground from the various hotels, where they're continuing to expand that. In the next couple of years, you'll be able to take a Tesla tunnel. So you'll get out of the airport, you'll go over to the Tesla tunnel, you'll get an electric car, Tesla, you'll go underground to your hotel, come out and go right to your hotel. So
they always say if you run out of room, just build up. But now it's just go beneath the surface.
It's incredible. They can drill up to 1 mile a month of tunnel. And I mean, that's not just drilling, that's putting in the infrastructure and the cement and everything around it. So it's just incredible, that sort of technology. So you've got that. Of course, you got the overhead trams. You've got lots of ways to get to the convention center.
And thankfully, as people know and whatever, everything's walking distance. And, all the hotels have everything you could possibly need. They're inside the hotel. So, I mean, it wasn't really an issue. It was just the few times we did Uber, the road was iffy, but the main problem was getting into the hotel drop-off center, because everybody was Ubering. So we would just get close and then get out of the car and walk the rest of the way. So, I mean, it wasn't a terrible thing, but it was congested.
No, I get it.
Because you couldn't take certain roads because of F1. But most of the time I was there, I was just walking, and it was no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely got better last year. Again, I completely agree. The first year was pretty frustrating. We're working, we work, as you can imagine, we work very closely. We're the largest trade show in Vegas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And one of the largest in the U.S. And so we have a bit of influence on construction, on where it happens, how it happens, those sorts of things. And we are weekly meetings with them. We're there monthly, our trade show team, and making sure that we find the best pathways. There is some construction going on at the convention center, but they work around us. In 2026, all that convention center will be brand new and done and looking beautiful. So, we have to work around a little bit of that right now. But once you got to the show, last year there was a lot of construction, but once you got inside the buildings, you could not tell there was any construction going on. So we have influence as to when they open and close roads, those sorts of things. And so I think you're going to see it's a lot better this year, and by 2026, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I will put a link to registration in the show notes of the podcast, in the description of the YouTube video. So if you're watching that, you can go check that out if you haven't already signed up. Book your flights, get your hotels. I mean, now's the time. So
now's the time. Yep. And there's actually early registration is a better price.
Mike, this has been fantastic. So I have learned a lot. I have appreciated the conversation. What'd you say? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that the early registration is there's a price discount for registering early.
Yes.
And so you want to get on.
Isn't that coming up end of the month?
It's coming up. I think first week of July, the price changes.
Okay. But yeah, no, Mike, this has been fantastic. And, each one of these conversations can be a whole podcast. So, we'll do this again. And
I'd love to.
We'll catch up and, go a little more in depth on some of the topics coming up soon. So I appreciate
that, Braxton. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.